The fourth major obstacle to peace is Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has all too frequently bowed to the demands of extremists like Ministers Smotrich and Ben-Gvir and the settlers in the West Bank. At this critical juncture, I believe a new election is the only way to allow for a healthy and open decision-making process about the future of Israel.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer called out Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, and called for new elections, early elections, in order to oust the Prime Minister. Now, Chuck Schumer also praised Netanyahu's past, but claimed that he has allegedly lost his way and is no longer able to usher in peace between Israel and the Palestinians. Just want to give you a reminder and also a counter to Schumer's allegations that Netanyahu used to be a good guy but suddenly devolved into a bad guy by mentioning the fact that Netanyahu has always rejected the notion of a two-state solution, and Netanyahu also helped to fund and prop up Hamas, something that the United States politicians typically don't like to talk about, something that gets something that's forgotten in a lot of the reporting, and something that I think is really important to focus on when it comes to who Netanyahu really is and how he has been an obstacle to peace, not just right now, but ever since he came into power. With that in mind, Schumer also criticized Bibi's obvious disregard for civilian lives lost in the Gaza Strip, which recently passed another devastating milestone. According to the United Nations and the Ministry of Health in Gaza, more children have died in the Palestinian territories over the past 5 months of war than have been killed in all armed conflicts worldwide over the past 4 years. And just a few more stats for you to really understand how devastating the situation is on the ground in Gaza. Let's take a look at this, where it shows that a total of 12,193 children were killed in conflict globally between 2019 and 2022, and that's according to the annual reports by the United Nations. From October 7th through February of this year, approximately 12,300 children were killed in Gaza, and the Ministry of Health says that number has gone up to 13,450. So I do appreciate that Senate Majority Leader Schumer was willing to call for elections to oust Benjamin Netanyahu. I'm not sure his replacement would be much better. There's a lot of talk about, a less extreme politician serving in that role. But we've seen previous prime ministers in Israel in recent decades, Cenk, and I really haven't seen a big difference in their policies toward Palestinians.
Yeah, there's been subtle differences and small attempts at two-state solution versus no attempts, and the level of brutalization is a little bit different too. Okay, so I think the number one point of this story is, wow, they lost Schumer. If the right-wing government of Israel has lost Schumer and Thomas Friedman, then they're in a world of trouble. Okay, so let me explain. Thomas Friedman, of course, writes for the New York Times, one of the best-known columnists, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your perspective. And he recently wrote an op-ed saying that Israel has become radioactive. Now, look, there's a couple of reasons why Schumer and Friedman are more important than the average bear. So yes, they're prominent Jewish Americans, and that's a little relevant to this story, but mainly they're relevant as bellwethers of the establishment. And they don't just speak for themselves, they've talked to other folks. There is no council, there is no like cabal or any nonsense like that. But do they talk to other influential people? And some that are in the Jewish community, some maybe in the evangelical Christian community, some in the business community, etc. Before they go rush out there and give a speech on the floor of the Senate or write a giant op-ed in the New York Times. Of course they do, and part of Thomas Friedman's job and Schumer's job is to do that, is to collect some degree of consensus. Now, I would love it if it was for the voters. In Schumer's case, as with all politicians, it's mainly consensus around the donors, right? And that's what he's representing. But that's even more relevant in this case. If the donor class and the establishment class are saying Israel has gone too far and we're going to put Netanyahu under a bus, that is very, very important, okay? So look, it doesn't mean that if they got rid of Netanyahu that everything would be great. And would Schumer want to continue the occupation? He says no, he says two-state solution, I've never really seen him push in that direction. And I've seen him give Israel tens of billions of dollars over the years when they weren't going anywhere near a two-state solution. But look, at this point, I will definitely take it. Netanyahu's not just a scapegoat. He is actually core evil, core part of the problem. He has been the one denying the state and brutalizing Palestinians. And Schumer called out Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, I butcher his name every time. Well, much better than what he does in butchering actual human beings. So Schumer's saying, do not replace him with another lunatic right-winger. And Friedman is saying similar things, and they've started to call out those three in particular. That is actually a great development, because would Benny Gantz be like a peacenik, another member of the cabinet, but he's actually in the opposition? The way the parliamentary system works is different than how it works here. Would he be an angel and all of a sudden give the Palestinians a state overnight? No, but would he definitely be better than those guys? Yes. Will I take my chances with Benny Gantz or someone like him? Yeah, I much prefer that than the status quo, which is monstrous.
Yeah, I mean, look, the human toll in the Gaza Strip is just, it's brutal, it's unbearable, it's difficult to focus on it every day as we produce the show, and it takes a mental toll on you because of just how devastating the scenes are from what's happening on the ground in Gaza. And I gave you some of the statistics of how many people have died so far, but just over the last 24 hours, 69 people have been reportedly killed in Gaza, bringing the total death toll to 31,341. Now, if you're not watching this live and you're watching this as a video on demand later, the number is very likely higher than what I'm reporting at this moment. And the exact magnitude of the casualties due to things like hunger and disease is something else that you should be concerned about, because it's hard to quantify how much of an impact that's had, how many lives have already been lost as a result of starvation and dehydration. Israel's severe restrictions of aid entering Gaza have condemned Palestinians to deadly hunger, leaving at least 27 Palestinians in Gaza dead due to malnutrition and dehydration, according to the health ministry. And remember, there are bodies trapped under rubble that are not counted in the death toll yet. And so once all of those bodies are counted, once that's also included in the death toll, just understand the number is going to be much higher. And according to people on the ground, witnesses who were speaking to journalists, they also indicate just how severe the crisis has become. For instance, these days, Jihad Abu Watfa, 27, finds himself riding his bicycle along the dusty streets of Bet Lahia in northern Gaza. He watches as hungry children scavenge for food, but he cannot help them. Children often search for food in the garbage, he said. There are many people who already fast like it's Ramadan, he told CNN in late February as the holy month approached. But even as Gazan civilians grow more and more desperate for resources, unfortunately, the Israeli military is still targeting UN facilities in charge of dispersing, passing out the humanitarian aid. The UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, for instance, said in a statement Wednesday that at least one of its staff members was killed and 22 were injured when Israeli forces struck one of its food distribution centers in southern Gaza. The Israeli military acknowledged the strike, saying it had targeted a Hamas commander. Now, these numbers haven't been independently confirmed, but local human rights organizations also reported that the strike killed 5 people in total. The Israeli Defense Forces said in a statement that it killed Muhammad Abu Hazna in the strike on the building in Rafah, describing him as involved in taking control of humanitarian aid and distributing it to Hamas terrorists. And Hamas has confirmed that, yes, he did die in that IDF military operation. They also said, Hamas, that he was the deputy head of police operations in Rafah. So it's the same thing. Look, there might be innocent human lives there. We might be targeting a humanitarian aid organization or a facility that has the humanitarian aid that's supposed to be passed out to Palestinians. But if we suspect that there's a Hamas militant within the building or near the building, they're gonna do the airstrike or they're gonna do the shelling. They're gonna do the military operation, which will maybe take out one militant, but obviously kill many others that are innocent civilians.
Yeah, look, so I know that in the old days this would have been considered third rail, intensely controversial. These days, it's pretty indisputable except for like the last holdouts of Israeli supporters. The IDF has now killed 25,000, more than 25,000 women and children. They claim that the rest are all terrorists, so that all males who live in Gaza are terrorists. So that gives you a sense of who the IDF is and whether their numbers are reliable, okay? So now their claim is, no, we're not terrorists, even though we have killed more children, more innocent children, than every conflict over the last 4 years, combined. Now, if Hamas had killed more children than all other conflicts in the world combined this year, let alone the last 4 years, we'd all say they're the most monstrous terrorists of all time. So now IDF's only claim as to why they're not terrorists is, oops, we did it again. Oh, we just accidentally killed 25,000 women and children.
I think that actually is too generous to them, Cenk. No, they know that a lot of innocent people are gonna die, but they think it's worth it if just one Hamas militant is taken out in that military operation.
Yeah, that is not accidental, that is intentionally killing civilians. Intentionally butchering, and yes, when a bomb lands on someone, it butchers them, it tears them to shreds or lights them on fire, including children. When you do that intentionally, that is the definition of terrorism. IDF has now done more than 25 times the terrorism that Hamas did on October 7th. So if you think October 7th was terrible, good, you should think that it was terrible. It was awful. Now Israel has done 25 to 30 October 7th.
So just to really emphasize the fact that they, meaning the IDF, knew what they were doing and they knew that innocent civilians would die. The UN Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA, said that the distribution center near the Egyptian border was hit, even though the coordinates of the center had been shared with Israel and other parties to the conflict. So they keep informing the Israeli government and the IDF, hey, this is where we are, hoping that they will be safe. And obviously that information is not persuasive to the IDF. And so UNRWA Commissioner General Philippe Lazzarini said this: today's attack on one of the very few remaining UNRWA distribution centers in the Gaza Strip comes as food supplies are running out, hunger is widespread, and in some areas turning into famine. Every day we share the coordinates of all of our facilities across the Gaza Strip with parties to the conflict. The Israeli army received the coordinates, including the facility yesterday. And workers at the facility, along with residents nearby, are unsurprisingly furious about the military operation. And I want to show you what I mean with this next video.
This is forbidden. We're an international institution. All of this is for people. We stopped returning to our homes. We work day and night to serve refugees. It's forbidden. People came here to get aid, to get food, to get their daily meals. It's Ramadan. How can they bombard us during the month of Ramadan?
I mean, month of Ramadan, children in the vicinity of the bombing, like they don't care, they don't care. And that's why, the argument that Hamas is using humans as civilians as human shields, obviously they know that it's not gonna deter the IDF if they are using civilians as human shields.
Yeah, no, look, I can't stand that talking point anymore. It's pure drivel and propaganda. So there is no military installations in occupied territories. That's like the Germans saying, well, we had to slaughter the Jews in the ghetto because they were hiding behind their human shields. Sorry, but that's exactly what it's like. Whoa, the brave Jewish rebels that were fighting against the Germans, where do you think they were gonna go? Do you think they had military installations? Where was the French resistance against the Germans? Did they do military installations in the middle of Paris? No, they hid because that's what all rebels do. Saying that's why we're gonna slaughter your civilians is not an excuse. So if that breaks your heart, I'm not the one breaking it. Israel is doing it by their actions. And guys, the reason I'm telling you about how now IDF is obviously a gigantic terrorist organization, if you believe in the definition of terrorism, and no one in their right mind thinks, oh golly gee, they were trying to avoid civilian casualties. That's why I say they accidentally missed and killed 25,000, a stadium full of women and children. No, they intended to kill those civilians. They say they have a good reason. You're hiding behind human shields, other propaganda, other talking point. I have a right to defend myself from something that happened 5 months ago that is not ongoing, but my slaughter of your civilians is ongoing. It doesn't matter. They've gotten to so bad that they've lost Schumer and Friedman. I have in my 40, not 40 yet, but almost 30 years of covering politics, I have never seen Schumer or Friedman turn on Israel, ever. Now Friedman's calling it radioactive, and Schumer's saying that the prime minister must be fired.
Because plausible deniability at this point is impossible. It just is. It just is. If you have your eyes wide open and you're seeing what's happening on the ground in Gaza, you can't deny what's happening. There is no excuse anymore. To your point, Cenk, the talking points don't work. They don't make sense. They don't make sense.
The only thing that the talking points do is they assuage people on your own side. Like they go, right. Oh yeah, that's a good excuse, good excuse. I'm gonna shut off my brain. It's Hamas's fault. Hamas made us kill their children. You really believe that? No one in their right mind can believe that. And by the way, if you do, congratulations, you agree with Hamas. Because Hamas says the same exact thing about Israel. They say, the Israelis made me kill their civilians, made me kill their children. Yeah. It is a terrorist talking point. So lastly, if you're still in la la land and you think they're doing it by accident every single time, how about the 6-year-old? When her family was killed in the car, they called for an ambulance to go rescue the 6-year-old. Israel tracked the communications, murdered the 6-year-old girl and everyone in the ambulance. How about the 3 Israeli hostages? They didn't even ask who they were, they just murdered them on the spot. How about the 112 killed in what's now being called the flour massacre, flour as in for bread? So remember when the people rushed the food truck and Israel, the IDF started murdering them from tanks and drones. Those are all accidents? No, they're intending to slaughter these civilians. And that is why even the most ardent supporters of Israel in America are saying, enough. This is not good for Israel. Forget the Palestinians. I'm sorry, Chuck Schumer, to break your heart, but you've never cared about Palestinian your whole life.
True.
Never, ever. You didn't mind them being occupied all these years, basically being kept prisoners and humiliated. What Schumer is saying is, hey, knuckleheads, forget the Palestinians. We never cared about them in the first place. This is hurting Israel. Turn around. Friedman even said, this is hurting Jews across the world because now people are beginning to basically hate us. That is true, and that's terrible. They're right, it is terrible for Jews. It is terrible for Israel, let alone those poor Palestinians. Israel must turn around immediately. If they don't, they're going to do more damage to themselves than they can recover from for decades on end.